Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into the world of Charlie Kirk, a really complex figure and someone who, until just recently, was just this relentless presence in conservative media.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the shocking news, Charlie Kirk's death at only 31.
Yeah, tragically shot while speaking at an event. It got international attention, obviously, and the reactions were, well, incredibly varied.
They really were. The Washington Post summed it up, didn't they? Saying he'd become one of the most prominent voices on the right in his later years.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing today, trying to understand that prominence.
Right. Our goal here is to, get past the immediate headlines, the shock.
Yeah.
We want to take a proper deep dive into Charlie Kirk's public life.
Okay.
From how he started out, which is pretty surprising, to building this media powerhouse.
Yeah.
We'll look at his political views, which were diverse and often controversial.
And the debates he kicked off.
It's exactly. The debates. We've got a bunch of sources lined up, his Wikipedia profile, news reports, what people were saying on social media, and we're even taking a specific look at his climate change views using a YouTube analysis from All About Climate. It's really about providing the context for you so you can understand his impact.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. How did this all happen? Charles James Kirk, born in 93.
Right.
He didn't exactly burst onto the national scene fully formed. I mean, his first taste of activism, it was in high school in Illinois, wasn't it? Campaigning about cafeteria cookies.
Believe it or not, yeah. Cookie price increases. But he moved on pretty quickly from that.
Clearly.
He got involved in Mark Kirk's Senate campaign, no relation apparently.
Right.
And then he wrote this essay for Breitbart News. It was about perceived liberal bias in textbooks.
And that got him noticed.
It did. Landed him on Fox Business. But the real turning point, maybe, was meeting a Tea Party member, Bill Montgomery. Montgomery apparently encouraged him to just go for it, full-time activism. And that led straight to co-founding Turning Point USA, TPUSA, in 2012.
And he was only 18 then.
Just 18. It's pretty remarkable how fast TPUSA then became this major player. Kirk wasn't just a name on the masthead. He was the CEO, the main fundraiser, the public face, right up until his death.
So he really built it from the ground up.
He essentially built an entire conservative ecosystem. Started with things like the Professor Watch List.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Caused a stir.
Definitely. Naming academics accused of liberal bias, and the School Board Watch List. Similar idea for local educators.
So targeting education at multiple levels.
Right. He even tried an online education thing, Turning Point Academy, though. That didn't quite work out.
So it sounds like he wasn't just building one organization, but more like a whole movement, piece by piece.
That's a good way to put it.
What do you think was the key to getting that serious backing so early on? He was just a teenager, basically.
Well, it seems like a mix of things. His youth, his energy, that probably resonated. But crucially, TPUSA got big money behind it, fast.
Donors like Foster Fries.
Exactly. People like Fries.
Yeah.
That early cash injection let him scale up really quickly. And Kirk's vision went way beyond just college kids.
Right.
He started Turning Point Action, that's the group that absorbs students for Trump, launched the Mount Vernon Project for grassroots stuff.
Okay.
And also Turning Point Faith, aimed specifically at religious communities.
So a very deliberate strategy, covering all bases.
Absolutely. A multi-pronged approach to get conservative ideas into, well, everywhere. And then there was his own media profile. Huge.
The Charlie Kirk Show.
Daily radio talk show. And the podcast version. By 2024, the sources say downloads were between 500,000 and 750,000 daily.
Wow. That's significant reach.
It really is. He totally embodied that pugnacious populist conservatism that defined the Trump-era GOP.
Okay, so he builds this massive platform, and then he uses it to really push specific viewpoints, shape conversations on all sorts of issues.
Constantly.
And his views were consistently strong, often, let's say, provocative. They definitely got people talking, arguing. So as we dig into these, it's worth repeating. We're just presenting what the sources say, trying to understand the different positions without, taking sides ourselves.
Exactly. Impartial reporting is key here. So one area where he was incredibly firm was gun rights.
Right.
A staunch supporter, a gun owner himself. He spoke for the NRA after the Parkland shooting back in 2018.
And what was his proposed solution then?
He talked about things like armed guards in schools, gun detectors, and he had this quote from April 2023 that really laid out his view.
What was that?
He said, I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights.
Wow.
Yeah. He added that, gun deaths could be reduced, maybe, but they'd never fully go away.
That quote definitely hits differently now, considering the broader context of gun violence in the U.S. and, of course, how he died. The data from 2022 really underscores those costs he mentioned.
It absolutely does. It's grim reading. The Gun Violence in the United States 2022 report. Just staggering numbers. Over 48,000 deaths from gun violence that year.
48,000?
Yeah. It averages out to like 132 deaths every single day. One death every 11 minutes.
And the impact on kids.
That's maybe the most horrifying part. Guns were the #1 cause of death for children and teens, ages 1 to 17.
More than car crashes.
More than car crashes, more than overdoses, more than cancer. Over 2,500 kids and teens died from guns in 2022. That's about 7 kids a day.
7 a day.
And that death rate for kids has gone up 106% since 2013. Yeah. Mostly homicides, about 2/3, then suicides making up over 1/4.
And there are disparities too, right? Based on race.
Huge disparities. Black individuals across all ages face a much higher risk of gun homicide than white individuals.
Yeah.
Especially young people, 15 to 34.
How much higher?
For black teens, 1 to 17, the gun homicide rate was 18 times higher than for white teens in 2022. 18 times.
That's shocking.
It is. And suicide trends are different too. While gun suicide risk for white people tends to go up with age, for black people it peaks younger, 15 to 34. And in 2022, for the first time ever recorded, the gun suicide rate for black older teens, 15 to 19, was actually higher than for white teens in the same age group. It had nearly quadrupled since 2013.
Wow. So these numbers, they provide a really stark backdrop to Kirk's advocacy for gun rights.
Definitely a sobering national context.
Okay. So beyond the Second Amendment, his views on social policy, gender roles, they were also very defined, right? It caused a lot of debate.
Oh, yeah. Very traditional views. He argued in one debate, I think it was Jubilee Media, that abortion is murder, should be illegal.
Any exceptions?
He generally opposed exceptions for rape. He did acknowledge, medical necessity if the mother's life was genuinely at risk.
Okay.
And more recently on Fox News, he was advising young women to prioritize family and marriage over careers.
Right. I saw clips of that, linking it to a fertility collapse.
Exactly. He talked about careerism, consumerism, and loneliness versus family, children, and legacy for Trump voters. He actually said, having children is more important than having a good career. You can always go back to your career later. That there is a window where you primarily should pursue marriage and having children. Pretty direct advice.
And wasn't there something about birth control, too?
Yeah, earlier on this podcast, he suggested Democrats wanted sexual anarchy, basically. And he advocated for parents to stop their daughters getting birth control, claiming it made women angry and bitter.
Okay, so very clear views on traditional family structure.
Undeniably.
And these strong stances extended into race and diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. That generated a lot of heat.
A lot of heat. He was very openly critical of DEI programs.
Yeah.
Called them anti-white.
And there was that comment about pilots.
Right. The infamous, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. Hugely controversial.
Yeah.
He also pushed the idea that the Great Replacement is not a theory. It's a reality.
Referring to the conspiracy theory about white populations being replaced.
Exactly. And he even defended an anti-Semitic post by Elon Musk claiming Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them.
Wow.
Yeah. And he didn't shy away from critiquing Martin Luther King Jr. either or trying to undermine the Civil Rights Act. These weren't just throwaway lines. They were consistent themes.
It really sounds like these positions fit into a wider ideological shift, particularly later in his career, towards Christian nationalism.
Yes, very much so, explicitly. He was often described as pushing for an end to the separation of church and state. That's pretty central to Christian nationalism.
Did he say that directly?
Well, in 2024, he said, one of the reasons we're living through a constitutional crisis is that we no longer have a Christian nation, but we have a Christian form of government, and they're incompatible. His words, he added, you cannot have liberty if you do not have a Christian population. And at a Trump rally that year, he just declared, this is a Christian state. I'd like to see it stay that way.
And he promoted the Seven Mountain Mandate.
Yeah, that's the idea that Christians should aim to control key societal mountains, government, media, education, etc. It was a very clear part of his vision for America.
Okay. He also jumped into specific immigration debates, right? There was one stance recently that caused quite a reaction.
The "no more visas for India" comment.
Right. How did he frame that?
As defending American workers. But it sparked immediate backlash. Critics said it would, choke off access to vital talent for Silicon Valley healthcare engineering, basically harming U.S. innovation by targeting a key pipeline, a very protectionist view.
And foreign policy generally, what were his main lines there?
Well, he was a very strong supporter of Israel. Lots of Israeli politicians expressed sorrow at his death, called him a friend of Israel.
But he wasn't always aligned with interventionist policies.
No. For instance, he opposed U.S. involvement in the Iran-Israel conflict in June 2025. And his take on the Russian invasion of Ukraine was controversial, calling it a border dispute, and apparently spreading false claims from Russian state media.
So a bit complex there. And alongside these policy stances, there was also this whole element of, well, misinformation and conspiracy theories.
Yeah, that was a pretty consistent thread throughout his commentary. It wasn't just policy debate. It was often challenging agreed-upon facts.
Like what sort of things?
False claims about arrests related to human trafficking, claims about French protesters chanting, "We want Trump," lots of COVID-19 misinformation.
Right, the COVID stuff was everywhere.
Yeah, comparing it wrongly to H1N1, calling it the China virus, pushing hydroxychloroquine, claiming social distancing in churches was some kind of democratic plot against Christianity, being skeptical about masks. The list goes on.
And didn't the Twitter files mention him?
They did. His account was apparently flagged internally under Do Not Amplify. Suggests even the platform saw issues with the content he was sharing. And of course, his books, like The May Gay Doctrine and The College Scam, they really laid out these views for his audience, too.
It's striking how consistent he was, weaving this worldview through so many different topics. But let's zoom in on one area where the debate got particularly intense: climate change.
Definitely.
We found this YouTube video, "Charlie Kirk is Clueless About Climate Change," from a channel called All About Climate. It directly takes on his arguments and offers scientific responses. It seems like a really good case study of how these debates play out.
Absolutely. It's a great example of the back and forth. So Kirk's arguments on climate change often involved questioning the scientific consensus.
How so?
Well, he'd claim CO2 isn't the only factor heating the atmosphere, mentioning things like sunspots. He'd bring up past natural climate changes, though sometimes inaccurately, like claiming Scotland had a Mediterranean climate in the 1700s.
Which isn't right, is it?
No, that was actually near the end of the Little Ice Age. Colder, if anything. He also directly challenged the idea of scientific consensus itself, calling it scientific democracy, or like voting on gravity. He'd ask about the 3% dissenting opinion.
Implying doubt is as valid as the consensus?
Sort of, yeah. He also suggested there might be positive effects, like a greener world, maybe fewer deaths from extreme cold, and he consistently argued the data showing warming was highly questionable.
Okay. And how did he frame potential solutions?
Generally as negative, hindering America's energy dominance, basically a cost the country shouldn't bear.
Right, so that's Kirk's side. What about the scientific counter-arguments presented in the All About Climate video?
They tackled each point directly. First, nobody serious claims CO2 is the only driver, but the evidence overwhelmingly shows it's the main one right now, along with other greenhouse gases. Solar activity. It's actually been stable or even declined slightly since the 70s, while warming has sped up.
So the sun argument doesn't hold up?
Not according to the data. And the past, climate changes. The video makes the point that just because climate changed naturally before doesn't mean humans aren't causing it now. They use an analogy. Finding previous natural causes of death doesn't rule out murder if the current victim has a gunshot wound.
Clear analogy. What about the consensus argument, the 3%?
The response was that scientific consensus isn't about opinion or voting. It's a consensus of evidence, as summarized in major reports like the IPCC's. Science always deals with probabilities and uncertainty, not absolute proof. And just because a small minority dissents doesn't make their view valid, especially if it lacks supporting evidence.
Okay. And the positive effects? Greener world.
Well, while some areas might get greener due to CO2, the bigger picture shows increasing water stress in major agricultural regions. And globally, far more people are now impacted by extreme heat due to warming, outweighing any reduction in cold-related issues.
And the questionable data.
The video points out we have instrumental records going back over a century, sure, but things like ice cores and sediment analysis give us data for thousands of years. That longer view shows current warming is, like, geologically unprecedented. Multiple independent lines of evidence all point to human CO2 emissions as the cause.
So the overall critique from All About Climate was,
That arguments like Kirk's, regardless of the specific point, almost always lead to the conclusion of doing nothing about emissions.
yeah,
They frame solutions as threats to freedom, create an us versus them dynamic, and basically politicize what should be a scientific discussion.
right. It's less about the science itself, more about the predetermined outcome. Okay, so beyond the actual policies and arguments, his whole style, his way of debating, that provoked strong reactions too, didn't it? Both ways.
Oh, incredibly strong. Polarizing is definitely the word. On one hand, he was called the youth whisperer of the American right, hugely influential for a new generation of conservatives.
Mm.
You had people like Representative Anna Paulina Luna saying he directly influenced her getting into politics.
And his supporters liked his debate style.
Many did, yeah. They stressed how he relished debate and the free exchange of ideas. Those prove me wrong tours on college campuses were a big part of his brand.
But that enthusiasm wasn't universal, to put it mildly.
Far from it, the criticisms were just as loud, if not louder, in some circles. Online discussions, like on Reddit, you'd see comments about bad faith debating tactics, people calling him a grifter.
What kind of vibe did they describe?
Things like an obnoxious, my dad is going to sue you vibe. Criticisms that he focused too much on culture war stuff and avoided substantive policy discussions. Some felt he held his own against college students, but maybe embarrassed himself when debating more experienced academics or policy experts.
Interesting contrast.
Yeah. But even critics often acknowledged his significance. He was a major voice, an entry point for many people into conservative ideas, even if some felt they eventually graduated from his platform, moved on to maybe more nuanced sources.
So this deep dive really paints a picture of, well, a very complex figure, Charlie Kirk. A conservative firebrand, undeniably influential, especially with younger audiences, articulating these really controversial views across the board, politics, society, science, and his death, so sudden and tragic, just bringing all this attention flooding back.
Absolutely. And I think what we see with someone like Kirk is how these figures can really ignite passionate debate, challenge norms, push boundaries, understanding the different perspectives, the evidence or lack thereof behind them, and how it all connects to bigger societal trends. That's really crucial for you, the listener, to form your own informed conclusions.
Yeah, it's not just about agreeing or disagreeing, is it? It's about understanding the landscape.
Exactly. It's about getting beyond just reacting to headlines or taking one side's word for it.
So ultimately, looking at Charlie Kirk isn't just about one person's life and career. It really is a window into these bigger ongoing conversations that are shaping our world, often driven by really strong convictions on all sides and with very real consequences.
For sure. So after hearing all this, what stands out most to you? What questions does this raise about influence, how information spreads, or maybe about the issues themselves that seem to divide us so deeply? It's definitely something to keep thinking about.
Good questions to ponder.
We just encourage everyone listening to keep seeking out different sources, different perspectives, as you try to make sense of these really complex issues.